All right. Good evening, everybody. My name is Mary Beth Sartain, and I direct the admissions process here at Linden Waldorf School. My co-host tonight is Hillary Humphreys. She is a parent volunteer extraordinaire, and also Mandy Nimitz, who is handling the technical side of this webinar. I've worked at the school for about, well, over a decade now, and I work through the admissions process with prospective families. And I hear a lot of the same questions, such as, where do the children go to high school? How do they do on standardized tests? What if my child doesn't gel with the class teacher? So even though I answer these questions to the best of my ability, I often connect these families with our alumni, because as you'll see tonight, our alumni are poised, articulate, thoughtful, funny, and just have lived the experience. So they're able to answer the prospective parent questions with an authenticity. And the hardest part about organizing these alumni panels is, like, we have so many alumni to choose from. So it's really, really hard to narrow it down to just 5. And so tonight we have a nice sampling of one who is in graduate school working on her PhD. One of our alumni is about ready to go to college, a high school senior. We have a high school junior, and then 2 high school freshmen who have just, assimilated into their high schools. I should let you know that this webinar is being recorded, and we ask that you submit your questions through the Q&A icon that you'll see at the bottom of your screen. And also know that, if you have a specific question to a specific panelist, please just address it, indicate that on your Q&A on your question. Also, I should let you know that we have both current and prospective parents here tonight, and some of the prospective families do not live in Nashville. So when we were organizing this event, we thought, like, should we have the alumni introduce themselves? Should I introduce them? And another attribute of a Linden Waldorf alumni, well, all our children really, is that they're humble. So we decided that I would do the introductions, and then we'll get the Q&A going. So Jessel Merchant. Jessel Merchant graduated from Linden Waldorf School in 2009. She went on to University School of Nashville, which is a private co-ed school. She graduated magna cum laude from Tufts University with a degree in clinical psychology. She is now in her 2nd year doctoral program at Washington University in St. Louis in clinical science, focusing on psychological and brain sciences. She is a recipient of an Olin Fellowship. For those of you that don't know what that is, an Olin Fellowship is awarded to women of exceptional promise to become leaders in society. Olin Fellows are citizen scholars committed to the betterment of humanity. Jessel helped create a student-led group called Dissect. Dissect is a student-led group dedicated to anti-racism that aims to create, compile, and disseminate open access resources to address systemic shortcomings in clinical psychology while amplifying BIPOC voices. I should also mention that the professor that Jessel works under is one of the leading scientist authorities in the world in schizophrenia. This professor, Dr. Barch, receives hundreds of applications every year and hopes for her mentorship through a 6-year PhD program. She chooses only one person each year, and Jessel is lucky enough to be one of those. So welcome, Jessel. Next, we have Matthew Drake. Matthew Drake graduated Lyndon in 2017. He is a senior at Nashville School of the Arts, which is a Metro Nashville public school. He is in the piano conservatory at NSA, but he also sings, plays guitar and the bass. Most recently, Matthew represented Nashville School of the Arts in the Tennessee All-State Choir as the first chair bass 2. He received the highest vocal score of all the students in the state. He has also been accepted on scholarship to Berklee College of Music in Boston, Massachusetts. Next, we have our man of mystery, Isaac Gordon. Isaac graduated Lyndon in 2018. He is a junior at University School of Nashville. He can be seen all over Nashville riding his bike because it is his preferred mode of transportation. He works at Halcyon Bike Shop, which is an independently owned neighborhood bike shop. We know that Isaac excels academically and socially, and I've heard from one of his co-workers that he is given a lot of responsibility at Halcyon Bike Shop. He is on the mountain biking team at USN and also on the baseball team. Isaac continues to play the viola, which he started, as all students do at Lyndon. We start a string instrument in 3rd grade. So welcome, Isaac. Psy Turner. Psy Turner graduated Lyndon last year of 2020. He attends Montgomery Bell Academy, MBA. That's an all-boys private school here in Nashville. He plays the saxophone, clarinet, bass, cello, and recently picked up the bagpipes. Psy is in many clubs, the Stock Market Club, the Strategy Club, and he is a member of the widely acclaimed MBA debate team. So most recently, Psy placed first in a national invitational tournament hosted by the University of Michigan, which had over 100 teams from the United States, China, and Taiwan. So be careful what you ask Psy Turner. Last but not least, we have Madeleine Leaderman. Madeleine also graduated last year in the class of 2020 from Lyndon. She is a freshman at St. Cecilia Academy, an all-girls private Catholic school. And she was awarded the Catholic Dyer Abbey Scholarship. That scholarship is in memory of Kathy, who graduated in 1982 and who was exceptionally caring and loving young lady. The award goes to qualified students who exhibit those same qualities. And so that's Madeleine. Madeleine is president of her freshman class. She is also manager of the JV volleyball team, and most recently, she organized the first ever Holocaust Remembrance Assembly for her school community at St. Cecilia. So those are our fine alumni tonight. And now I'm going to turn it over to Hillary Humphreys, who will kick it off with the first question that will go to all of our alumni. Thank you.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Mary Beth. Welcome, everyone. And thank you, panelists, for joining us tonight. Our first question, I would love for all of you to answer, and we will have you answer in the order in which you were introduced tonight. So to get things started, tell me, or how would you describe your Lyndon experience using 3 words? Jessel, if you want to start for us.
Sure. Okay, so my Lyndon experience, I might be stretching the 3 words a little bit with this. But I mean, obviously I'm in graduate school now and went to college. So I have kind of continued to pursue learning a lot, and I attribute a lot of that to my time at Lyndon. So I think I would say that it inspired a love of learning, which we can kind of push to being 3 words, even though it's a little bit more than that.
Great.
All right, so my answer isn't quite as exciting as that one. I said personal supportive, and exploratory, because I think those really capture the environment that Lyndon has to offer.
My 3 words, I said exciting, fun, and adventurous. I just have a lot of fun memories, and every day was like a new adventure. Yeah.
My 3 words were holistic, personal, and community, because I feel like that really sums up my Lyndon experience.
I would have to say joyful, connecting, and also adventurous.
Thank you. Second, learning to read at Linden is a little different than other traditional schools. So here's your question. What was it like learning to read at a different pace than your peers outside of Linden Waldorf?
So I might not be the best person to answer this question. I started at Lyndon partway through first grade, and I did know how to learn how to read at that point. But I guess what I can speak to is a lot of my classmates at that time did not know how to read, and I know they went on to thrive and do really well. And there didn't really seem to be a difference between them and me in terms of their reading skill sets long term.
I think, yeah, so I never really struggled with that very much. I'm not talking about reading, but like I never struggled with like whatever hardships there may be of like learning how to read at a different pace. I feel like just like because of how personal the classroom dynamic is, I felt like I was learning at a pace that was good for me. And then I guess looking on like a larger long-term scale, I've like done pretty well with all of my reading sections on standardized tests. And I know that that's true for like the alumni I go to school with at least. So yeah.
I think I agree with Matthew. I agree with like the personal aspect. I remember like reading like books like specifically with the teacher, like individually and things. That helped a lot. And then outside of school, I mean, I don't know. I don't think it really affected anything. It's just like, yeah, I was just a kid.
Yeah, that's great. And this is a reminder for our attendees. Feel free to add questions in the Q&A as our time progresses. Let's jump into the next question. Did you feel prepared for high school? Let's start there.
Is that me or?
Yeah, go for it, Psy.
Okay, sure. I definitely felt prepared. I mean, maybe the first week, I guess, was kind of hard because Lyndon really doesn't give you that much homework. And when you go to high school, you're definitely going to get more. But since Lyndon makes you like learning more, if you're enjoying what you're learning, you're going to find like the drive to finish whatever homework you get.
Sure.
Hey, Hillary, I'm going to go back a little bit because I heard several of the alumni mention the word personal and community. And I'm just curious if you could elaborate what that means to you. I think Matthew, you said it, Psy said it, Isaac said it. Could you elaborate on that, please?
Yeah, I guess I'll go first. So, right. So I said personal because of, I guess, the relationship I was able to sort of cultivate over time with my teachers. I think that was largely in part due to how the teacher stays with you as you go through the grades. So I was really able to like get really close to like my teachers, and they got to know me really well and got to know how I learn. And that was really cool. That was great.
And Matthew, how many were in your class?
So by the time we graduated, we had 22, which I think is the biggest class so far to graduate.
Right. And so what was that relationship like with your classmates?
Yeah, so I mean, I thought it was great. I mean, you might expect things to not be quite as, like people to not be quite as close, but I don't know if it was just like luck with just how all of our personalities fit together or what, but I mean, I never felt left out. I didn't ever feel like anyone else was left out. I don't think that really affected my relationship with my teacher or my friends or anything.
Nice. And Jessel, I see you nodding your head. Would you agree? What was your experience? I know it was a long time ago, but reach back in those recesses of your mind.
Yeah. It was definitely a long time ago, but yeah, I completely agree with everything Matthew was saying. I think socially, like, I think that kind of the support that we get from our class and our classmates is actually really beneficial socially in continuing on, because I think most people I know have very positive social experiences. And when you have that type of reinforcement and that type of community, I think that builds your social skills and your confidence and kind of allows you to thrive socially, whether at Lyndon or kind of when you move past it.
Thank you. And how about you, Psy? I know you mentioned personal too. And then Isaac, you're up next for that.
Yeah, I agree with everything both panelists have said before me. I think you do form really special bonds with your teachers and with your classmates. I think your teachers definitely kind of figure out who you are and how you learn and how they can best use that to teach you the material. And I think having the same class and the same teacher across all 8 years, if you're there from first grade to 8th grade, definitely forms that kind of community.
Would you say, Psy, that the 10 minutes I taught you of yoga every day in 6th grade helped your debate skills?
I definitely think, yeah, that definitely has helped my debate skills.
All right, Isaac, you're up.
Okay. Well, I didn't have like a big consistency in teachers over the years. I went through a lot of teachers, but like I was still able to like just like communicate with the teachers and things, and that carries on like a lot into high school. I'm sure it's the same at other high schools, but if you're able to like go to your teachers like after class and like work with them if you need to and like communicate with them well, yeah, it pays off a lot, and Lyndon did a good job of like teaching that. Yeah.
All right, so that question, sorry, I interrupted there, but I think how well prepared were you for high school? And Hillary, I'm not looking at the Q&A, so if I'm like taking up all the time, let me know.
You're great.
Yeah, let's go to Madeleine and Psy, because it's a recent memory for them because they're freshmen. How prepared were you for high school, Madeleine?
I would have to agree with Psy in saying that for me, the most difficult week was the first week. And I was fully expecting that, but I felt prepared, especially socially, because at Lyndon you're able to learn how to create those relationships because you have to, because it's such a small connected group, but you learn the life skills that you need to make friends and to connect with the people around you. So I felt prepared for sure.
Yeah, and how did you become president of your class, Madeleine? That's happened.
Well, I knew that I wanted to be part of the St. Cecilia community, and I heard from upperclassmen that there was no better way to do that than to run for president. And yeah.
What was your platform?
I think I wanted everyone to feel that since it was a crazy year to be a freshman in high school, there is, that even with COVID, that we were still able to be connected and we were still able to bond.
Thanks, you guys. I see a question from our Q&A. What were some helpful things your parents did to help you transition to high school?
So we start with Psy again, since he and Madeleine are most recently in high school.
Sure. My parents, honestly, they play I don't know, they kind of parent me from a distance with regard to like homework and stuff if they think I'm doing all right. For the first couple weeks, I think that they were pretty worried about whether or not I was gonna do well. So they had times where they would, tell me to go to my room and get my homework done. And my mom would wake me up a little bit before my alarm clock to make sure I got ready for school.
Yes. I have to agree with Sai. I think my mom as well was a little on edge the first few weeks, as I was. but I think my mom has helped me. She encouraged me to run for president and to get connected with my classmates and the community at St. Cecilia. Yeah.
Great. How about you, Isaac?
Could you repeat the question, please?
Yes. How did you feel your parents, or what could parents do to help you in your transition to high school?
Okay. Well, my parents, I found it very helpful. They were like, I don't think it's very helpful when the parents are like really over involved in things. My parents like were very supportive when I needed it, but they weren't like really overbearing in things. I guess like, is this question talk about like the process of getting into high school?
No, I would say
Because-
more, it could. I think parents on the panel are looking for ways to support their child transitioning into high school, and if there was anything specific that they could do that you found helpful that your parents did.
I see. Okay. I don't know. I guess it's really just like just asking them how their day was when they got home from school. I think that's really it, just being there. I think that's it. Yeah.
That's great. Thank you. Our next question from the Q&A. What was it like transitioning to a more traditional school from high school, specifically academically?
So let's start with Matthew Drake on that one.
Yeah, so I felt pretty good actually. Going into high school, I didn't really struggle too much with anything academic, and I think that's definitely a result of the curriculum at Lyndon and not just like being at more. Yeah, I felt like I had all the like material I needed to learn. I knew at that point, and what I think was most helpful was that love of learning that everyone is talking about is like a very real thing that I also feel like I've been given through my time at Lyndon, and that made it like really easy for me to transition, honestly, just because I was, and I still am, just like really loving everything I was learning. So it didn't feel too hard because I liked it so much. So yeah.
Okay, let's ask everyone this, because really you're with the same children all the way from, I mean, basically new kids come in and out, but you're with the same class from first through 8th grade. And what was maybe your biggest struggle when you went to high school? Like, as some of you are at bigger high schools, what did you find was the biggest adjustment? How about you, Isaac?
Well, USN, I don't think USN's definitely not as big as other schools. It's about like 100 people per grade, but it's still a big step up from Lyndon. The biggest adjustment is probably, I don't know, I guess like the teaching styles. To be honest, I'm not sure if it's very helpful. I think USN's kind of similar. It has like, the classrooms also have like 12 people in them, so it's very similar feel. Maybe like, I don't know, the schedule is just so different. The school is just so big. A very difficult thing. I was just getting lost in things. Yeah.
How did you do making friends? Was that easy for you, or was it?
Yeah. I was like, I was the only person to go from Linden to USN that year. But you just put in a situation, and you just have to prevail, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. How about you, Jessel? You went to USN also. How was your transition?
Yes, my transition was very different because we had, I think, 7 of us that year go to USN afterwards. So that was really different. But my transition was really smooth. I think probably the weirdest part of it was looking forward to the transition, because I knew in my head that Waldorf was a very different curriculum of education and it probably was going to be a big transition. And I didn't really find it, I found the anticipation a lot more stressful than it was in reality. I think like academically, the transition was very smooth. Socially, also, I think the nice thing about graduating in 8th grade and moving forward to high school is a lot of these schools that are, you know, K through 12 or something like that, a lot of people have been together from kindergarten and are just really excited for new faces to be coming in, and they really want to just be meeting the new people that are coming in. So I think for me, the biggest part, the biggest struggle in the transition was just anticipating how different it was going to be. And it didn't really seem like something that I needed to adapt to as drastically as I thought that I would. It was pretty smooth.
Sorry. Did you have AP courses at the schools that you were at? Was that an adjustment, Jessel?
Oh, sorry, I didn't know if you were asking me or the general panelists. No, I don't think it was either. So the way that AP courses worked at USN at least was your first option to take an AP class, and I don't know if it's the same now, Isaac, was sophomore year, so 10th grade, and you had the option of taking one, which was AP European History. So if you wanted to take that, which I did, you take it, and if you don't, you don't. It feels like a slightly more intensive workload and things like that per class. But other than that, it really wasn't that different either. And I think it's nice at USN, they kind of adjusted you to it. So like the first option was sophomore year, and then kind of you had increased options from there. But I don't think that was a big adjustment for me either.
Thank you.
Is it okay if I say something on this point?
Of course.
Okay, so yeah, so I go to NSA, and last year I took 5 AP classes, and I can say, I know that sounds like a lot, but and I have like a lot of my friends that came from Lyndon to NSA also took a lot of AP classes, and I just feel like I was really like well set up to sort of handle that kind of workload, even though the workload at Lyndon like isn't a lot. It's like pretty light. I feel like I was just sort of given like the I guess the drive to sort of want to pursue those kinds of things. So I was able to pass all of those, which was really cool. And I think Lyndon like was a big part, like played a big role in me like being able to do that and like doing it, I think.
That's great. Thank you.
The curriculum is so diverse, Matthew. Like you act in a class play, you ride a unicycle, you make a platonic solid, you play a stringed instrument, you do handwork, you do woodworking. So it tends to instill a resilience and an adaptability. So when you're faced with new experiences, it's, you know, you've already had a lot of new experiences. Sorry, Hillary, I interrupted.
You're great. A question that I have from the parents, is there anything you wish you could have experienced more of or less of at Lyndon to prepare you, whether it be socially, academically, in the transition?
Let's give that to Psy Turner.
Honestly, not really. I think if I had to think of something, maybe it would be essay writing. We definitely got into that more in my 8th grade year than I know some other classes did. But I think Lyndon prepared me pretty well for everything.
How about you, Isaac?
I guess and this might seem kind of dumb, but like I guess maybe socially, like Lyndon didn't have like its own like sports teams, but you know, all the guys in the grade, we just went and played we just went and played baseball at McCabe and stuff, and then we just play like at recess and things. So I guess that's like maybe a social thing that I wish could have changed, but I don't know. I'm not sure if it's possible. But yeah.
Right, and how was it going playing on USN's baseball team? Having not played. Go on.
I mean, I guess I know compared to other schools, like especially like MBA or Psy is, it's like gonna be like a lot easier. But it was still like a lot different. I mean, it's a little more serious and things, but it's still really fun. And then the mountain bike team, I just joined it freshman year just for fun. Yeah.
That's great.
I've got another good one. What makes you the most proud of having gone to Lyndon? If you could talk to your middle school self right now, what would you say?
Jessel, reach back.
Oh man. Okay. So I was leaning as you were reading that question, what made me the most proud of it and what I would say to my middle school self might be different things. So I'll start with the first thing. But I think one thing that or maybe I would tell my middle school self to just appreciate the time that I had there. I think a really unique thing about the Lyndon experience is that we do have all of these opportunities, like you were saying, to do woodworking and handwork, and you get 2 recesses a day until 8th grade, and you're living this life even at school where you're really enjoying it and you're learning, but you're not burnt out. And then I got to high school and I did not feel at all academically behind from other people who kind of at the same time were indoors filling out worksheet after worksheet and didn't even have, a fraction of the same types of experiences as I had at Lyndon. So, I mean, I think I would just maybe tell myself to really appreciate the experience for what it is, because a lot of people don't get to have that.
How about you, Madeleine?
I think that one of the best things that I got from Lyndon was that Lyndon provided me with almost a toolbox of things, an array of different life skills and all sorts of things that you need, one in high school and out of high school when you're older. And I'm just proud that I was able to have the experiences I had and to have the adventures that I had, and that I know that one, I'll always have the memories, but I'll have the life skills that I learned from those situations.
What kind of life skills, Madeleine? Could you just elaborate a little bit?
Yeah. I think one thing that came to mind a little earlier was time management was a thing that I learned at Lyndon that I am so thankful for sure. Yeah.
How about you, Matthew?
Which question is this?
What would you tell your middle school self?
Yeah, so I think I would say, don't stress, but also brace yourself at the same time for the transition, because I was able to transition without much trouble, but it can be a little, I mean, it's still sort of a big deal for like like a little 8th grader. It can be sort of like a big, crazy, scary thing. Even if you don't like actually struggle with any of the work, it's still crazy. You're like going off, leaving this like tiny group of people you've been with your whole life to like meet all these new people at a whole different place. And even if it isn't challenging, it's still kind of crazy. And so, yeah, I'd say brace yourself, but don't be too stressed about it because it'll be okay.
Great.
Going back to the previous question and comments, the question that I have that a parent posted was, other than sports, what extracurriculars do you wish you had access to at Lyndon?
Great question. Let's start with Isaac because he already mentioned sports.
Extracurriculars. I don't know. I mean, between like woodworking and handwork and things, maybe there'd be like some kind of like extracurricular like academic thing, but don't know. I feel like there's like a fair amount of like things you can do. Just like there's a fair amount of things you can do in school. I don't really remember there being like any clubs or things like that, but yeah.
There was chess club, Isaac. Do you remember?
Oh, I was in chess club actually, but chess is a sport. No, I do remember chess club. That was fun. That was actually a long time ago.
All right, how about you, Jessel, and then Matthew, Psy, then Madeleine.
Yes, I'm trying to think. I was in chess club too at Linden, and I think maybe my experience was a little bit different because we did have a cross country team for a while when I was there that I was on. So it's great that there are options, and there were when I was there. So at that time, I didn't really feel like I was lacking in extracurriculars because I did the cross country option and I did the chess club option. And yeah, so I feel like I felt pretty good extracurriculars wise.
Yeah, and we still have cross country, Jessel. How about you, Matthew?
Yeah, so I guess I can't really think of anything in particular. I mean, I think sort of like what Isaac was saying, we already sort of cover a lot of things just in the curriculum itself. I feel like music is my passion, I guess you could say. And that's really what I have always liked to spend my time on. And so I would feel inclined to say like, oh, I wish we had different music clubs, but like I already did so much of it just in like an average school day that I didn't really feel a need to do anything extracurricular with that as through the school. Yeah, I also, another thing I want to bring up with this was for my 8th grade project, I wrote a musical and like directed it. I auditioned people and I produced the whole thing and I was in it. I starred in it, and we put on a whole performance in the sanctuary at school. And I used the fellowship hall to like hold the auditions and the rehearsals and everything. And I bring that up because that was something that I thought would be really fun to do, like a play or a musical outside of just the class plays that we do. And I was able to make that happen through the school, which I think is really, really nice. And I think part of that is, like just due to the size of the school, there aren't a ton of people. And so it's much easier to sort of get those things to happen and for like your voice to be heard.
Maybe Matthew, can you explain a little bit about the 8th grade project? Because we do have prospective families in the audience that maybe have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, so every student at the end of their 8th grade year, or I guess sort of throughout their 8th grade year, does a project on a topic that they choose, and you have a mentor and you work with them throughout the year until like, I guess sometime in May, you have a big presentation where all of the students in the 8th grade class put up their projects in the fellowship hall, and parents and other students walk through and like you get to talk about what you've been working on over the past year, and it's really fun, it's really cool. And it's sort of something like all the students like look forward to in their 8th grade year. And so yeah, mine was writing a musical, and I actually started mine back in when I was in 7th grade. At the end of 7th grade, I was really into Hamilton at the time, and so that's sort of what set me off. And then I just like started and I stuck with it all the way back around to the end of 8th grade. Yeah, and I think it's so cool that I was even able to do that and like use the school space for things like that. I think that's really, really cool.
Right. Hey, Isaac, why don't you talk about your 8th grade project?
Okay. So for like most of the year, I worked with my mentor, he owned racing pigeons and he lived like right outside Nashville. So I just researched like racing pigeons and like worked with his pigeons, and then I built like a pigeon loft with my dad. And then like for the presentation, we brought some of his pigeons and had them like fly around the school and stuff. And then I had some pigeons, but they were babies at the time. And I still have them today. Yeah.
Wow. Madeleine, You got a lot of press for your 8th grade project. You want to tell us about it?
Yes. So I painted a mural. It was 7 feet by 33 feet. It was a process. It was. And I can definitely thank my teacher for inspiring my love of art and getting me on the track to paint the mural. And going back to one of the earlier questions, I think that's another thing that I'm incredibly proud of that came from Lyndon.
What was it? Why don't you tell us what the mural said?
It says love. I thought of this design and mural when the pandemic was beginning, and I talked to my mom and we decided that what the world needed most was love.
Right. And it's one of those, like in Nashville, there's murals on different walls and tourists come and take their pictures in front of it. And they do that in front of your mural, don't they?
Yes, ma'am, they do.
That is so cool. All right, Hillary, I'll be quiet now. You can.
No, you're great. We're getting some questions about the teachers. I know we hit on it a little bit earlier, but it's not necessarily uncommon to change teachers a couple times as you progress through the grades. For those of you who had the same teacher or different teachers, tell us about that experience. And then even tag on to that, there's been some questions about students transferring in. So these questions are moving more into change within Lyndon in your experience.
Let's start with Psy.
Sure. I think, I don't know what it is at Lyndon. I feel like there's like a special kind of caliber of teachers. I don't know if there's just a really strict vetting process, something, but I feel like all the teachers, none of the teachers are that kind of teacher that just, comes in and gives their lecture that they give every day and they're not really enjoying it. I feel like all the teachers really like interacting with the material, including especially like the grade's main teacher, which is pretty cool because they end up teaching probably 50 different subjects over the course of 8 years. So yeah, I think the teachers at Lyndon are probably the main reason that it's like a really special school.
And Psy, you had the same teacher?
Yes, I had Miss Scott from grade 1 through 8.
Was she your early childhood teacher too, or no?
No, she wasn't my teacher. She was there when I was in early childhood. I was part of the Morning Glory group, which I think became Rose. Miss Bryan was my teacher, and Miss Scott, I think, taught Sunflower.
And what was that relationship like, being with the same teacher for 8 years?
It's kind of like being taught by like a close family member. They definitely know you a lot better than probably any other teacher will. They can tell when you're trying to get away with something, and they can tell how you learn better. They can kind of customize their classes to all their students to make sure that everyone's learning as well as they could be.
How about you, Madeleine?
So I was also in Psy's class and Miss Scott's class. I was with Miss Scott in kindergarten and I was in the Sunflower class. And I think that having the one teacher all the way through was probably one of my top favorite things about Lyndon, because especially I got the most incredible teacher. I was so fortunate, as all Lyndon students are, to get that connection that you create with your teacher. And Miss Scott really became my second mother. I could tell her anything, I could trust her. And also going off what Psy said, there was no way that the teacher could always see through you. They could tell if you weren't feeling well, or they could tell if you had a rough morning, or if you had some exciting news. Miss Scott, she could always tell. And I thought that was really special.
Muted. Matthew, Isaac, and then Jessel.
Is that on the same question?
Yeah, like your relationship with your teacher, that how many teachers you had, what that was like.
Yeah, so I had 3 teachers. The first one was 1st through 3rd grade, and then I had a teacher for just 1 year in 4th grade, and then I had Ms. Portillo from 5th through 8th grade. So I've sort of, I don't know, I've had my like different lengths of teacher havings, I guess. So, yeah, man, that was a long time ago. I guess, yeah, going into 5th grade. I think, gosh, what do I even say here?
That's okay. If you don't have something that's coming, we'll just, you can think about it. And if something pops up, we'll move to Isaac.
I have one thing to say on this.
Okay.
I think getting a new teacher is, I mean, definitely a very exciting thing and can be like a huge, be a really big shift for a student. But also, I think with the way that the curriculum is engineered, it's the way that it's set up is that it's very easy to make that really personal connection with your teacher, even if you're like just in the first year of knowing them, which I think is really cool.
Yeah. Hey, you, Isaac.
Well, my grade's definitely not the grade to talk about like main teachers, because I had so many main teachers over the years, and which is really uncommon compared to other classes. And it was all for different reasons and things. It was just kind of unlucky, I guess. And I guess the only benefit that came from that was probably like our class got closer as a whole, because we'd all been together through everything, but different teachers every year. But if the question is just about like, teachers in general, they're like all the subject teachers also kind of stick with you throughout all the years too. And a lot of them I remember really well and were really influential. Yeah, and honestly, probably like the subject teachers, like Miss Bridgers, Senora Fontella, Mr. Bale, all of them, they were probably more consistent than my main teacher. So the subject teachers are also really, really influential. Yeah.
Now, how about you, Jessel?
Yes, I don't know if I even have a ton to add to what everyone else said. I was also in the boat of I had a lot of different teachers throughout my years, but I do think even kind of that process made our class stronger, because we were kind of going through the ups and downs with these things, and we could discuss the differences between the teachers we had and things like that. So like Isaac said, I think even that part of it brought us closer together, because at least we were all in it from the get-go. And we still did, as Isaac said as well, get to kind of build that same type of relationship with all of the subject teachers that we had, which I think was also very meaningful.
Great.
There's been some questions about transferring into Lyndon. I know all of you on the call tonight went all the way through the grades. So I was curious, Mandy, since you're on the call, will you talk briefly about the transition of your kids coming into Lyndon? Was it 2nd and 5th, I think?
It was 3rd and 6th. Hi, everybody. Yeah, just briefly. So just last year, my children came to Lyndon. We were in highly regarded public schools and outside of Nashville and doing fine, but we found Lyndon and we decided to make the move. And it was the transition, to speak specifically to that, was really not only easy, but I'd say it was a positive experience. Socially, I would say that, for my little one in 3rd grade, the friends were extremely welcoming. And she was so excited she'd get in the car and say, "Mom, I have so many friends and everyone's so nice." And then for my 6th grader, she can tend to be quite shy. And so making new friends can be out of her comfort zone. But I sent an email to the parents and just said, "Hey, my daughter can be kind of shy. If there's anything you can say to your student, just, would you encourage them to integrate her?" And I got overwhelmingly kind and welcoming responses from the parents. And then she quickly integrated. Academically, it was refreshing. I'd say for my middle schooler, all of a sudden, it wasn't just tons and tons of homework and lots of worksheets and tests and standardized tests and all this. It was this really bright and vibrant material. So geometry wasn't geometry, it was geometric drawing. And it was these gorgeous pictures that she was bringing home. And you could just see the light in her eyes turning back on and realizing that how fun learning could really be, which is what I think we've heard all of these students, all the panelists say. And then for my third grader, I thought this was adorable. At one point she said, "Mom, this school is so great. We really don't learn that much." But of course they were learning a lot. I was looking at what she was reciting and the mental math she was doing and these projects that she was doing. It's just that to her, it was fun. They were singing and there was storytelling and they were going outside and there was music. But throughout all of that, there's all this learning that she was doing, but it was just entirely delightful. So I just say that for my children, the transition, I just watched them blossom and bloom. So it was amazing, not just for them, but also for us as a family.
Thanks, Mandy. This is our last question for the evening. And I'm going to ask all of the panelists to answer this because as we mentioned earlier, there are parents on the call that either are thinking about sending their child to Lyndon or those even, should I keep my child at Lyndon? What would you want to tell those parents tonight?
Shall we start with Jessel and work our way down?
Sure. I would strongly encourage parents to do it. Kind of, as I said, I really think it's had a profound impact on the rest of my life. I don't even know if I would be doing the same thing I'm doing right now, if not for Lyndon. And I think I've also kind of had the opportunity to view it on the other side of things a little bit because I've done a lot of babysitting, or I would do a lot of babysitting as extra hours. And I had opportunities to babysit Waldorf children and non-Waldorf children. And it was really like a stark contrast, I think, in their ability, even whether it be to entertain themselves or think of like creative problem solving ideas rather than just allowing themselves to be bored. I was appalled because sometimes you can't see that level of it when you're in it yourself. But I think it, especially at a time where there is so much going on with technology and kind of playing outside and being able to entertain yourself outside of that is lacking, I think, in a lot of, upcoming generations. I think it's very important. I would highly encourage parents to do it, especially because I didn't really see a downside at all. I feel like academically things were pretty smooth after I graduated.
Okay, I totally agree with Jessel. I would just say, yeah, go for it. Trust the process, I think, is something that's really important. All the teachers are fantastic and they know what they're doing. I can say that personally, I really do feel, I feel like I've said this a million times, but I really believe that I've been like kind of instilled with some really great like core like character traits. I don't know. I guess that's how you could say that. And I feel like I'm sort of set up. I've been like set up really well for just like emotionally and personally as a person, as a student, and even as a musician. I feel like I've just been like given everything I could possibly want, and I now have like the like personal ability to just sort of branch out and do whatever I want with my life. Yeah, and I'm really grateful for that.
Having had so many different main teachers throughout the years, I definitely had like a lot of opportunities to leave, and so did a lot of other people, because the transitions are they're kind of hard, but in the end I just never left and I've never regretted it. Every year kind of builds upon the year in the past. And yeah, academically there's definitely been like, I don't think there's been anything, I meant to say it earlier, but like my Spanish class, my math class, that integrated like perfectly into USN's curriculum, like, and then also I don't know, some of my some of my best friends. Yeah.
Yeah. If you're thinking about coming to Lyndon or sending your child to Lyndon, I would definitely recommend it for all the reasons everyone has said. I think it definitely does make you a better person generally, and it definitely makes you a better student with like an appetite for learning. If you're considering pulling your student out of Lyndon, I would not recommend doing that. I think the last 2 years of Lyndon are pretty important to actually have like a smooth transition to wherever you go next. I think 7th and 8th grade was where at least my class learned some of the stuff, the standard academic stuff that other schools had been learning for a while. I think that those were really important years for me knowing what to do in math and language arts. So I would definitely encourage you to keep your child enrolled in Lyndon.
Of course, I would like to agree with what all the other panelists have said, and I would just say that you are giving your child a gift by sending your child to Linden Waldorf School. I cannot stress that enough. You are setting up your child for a life of love and connection and support and friendship and the bonds that I've gotten from Lyndon, I know I will have for the rest of my life. And each day when a child goes to Lyndon, they are charged with the most wonderful, positive experiences so they can go home and be ready for the next day. And each day is an adventure. And if you're considering leaving, just stay. It's great.
Thank you. Are there any more questions, Hillary?
That's all I have for tonight.
Do any of the panelists want to add anything else to what has been said? I don't really think we touched on music so much.
I have one quick thing to add that does not have to do with music though, so happy to defer to someone who does. But just as someone who's so far removed from the process, I know other people have been talking about their social connections from Lyndon. And that might seem, like more of a given in high school or other things like that. But just to kind of hone that in as someone who is now more than a decade out, which sounds so weird to say, I hadn't thought about it in that way until this moment. I still have, most of those bonds, and those are all people who are very close to me, from people that I talk to really often to people who I don't necessarily, one of my good friends who, we aren't necessarily in touch all the time. I was traveling last year, she lived in Vancouver, and I was traveling with a friend, and I just knew that like my friend and I had a place to stay. There was no doubt in my mind. And there still is that semblance of family there. I've had Lyndon peers visit me when I was living in Boston and other things like that. And so even this far out, I think that bond has stayed really strong, especially compared to other people that I know that went to middle school with people.
Right. How many were in your class, Jessel?
Ooh, I think 12 was our graduating class size.
I think that was Psy and Madeleine. How many were in your class?
I think 14 or 15.
All right, and I think Isaac, you had about 12 too. I know that because my daughter was in there. If there are no other questions, Hillary, I think we were going to close it out with Matthew playing an original piece that he wrote for his audition into Berklee School of Music. It's called Remaining Green.
Or ruminating green. Okay. Let me go to the piano.
Oh, ruminating green. So when he is finished playing, we are going to end the meeting. So so this is farewell. Thank you everyone for coming. If you have any questions, I think the invitation came from me, so you know how to get a hold of me. And thank you for coming.
Okay, I guess is everything good to go? Cool. Okay. Okay, here it is. This is Ruminating in Green. Play this for my Berklee audition. Okay. you.